You're listening to Misunderstanding Dementia Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Misunderstanding Dementia Course, and you can put in 50 to get a 50% discount on the course. Thank you. Well, hello everyone. This is Dr. Mike Chua, physical therapist, certified dementia practitioner, and the author of Misunderstanding Dementia. And today we have a special guest here. I'm here with Dr. Jenna Kantor. She's also a physical therapist, and she has some experience in taking care of dementia patients. So tell me more about you, Miss Jenna.
Yes, so I am a recent graduate of Columbia University, which is very exciting. And regarding dementia patients, I have had that with my grandmother in my family. So for me, it wasn't necessarily I was a hired person to come take care of her, but I was definitely somebody who I have experienced what it's like for that mental decline. And also it's an unfortunate preparation for what's going to be happening to me because it runs in the family.
You mentioned about it runs in the family. Do you have any specific, what kind of dementia or dementia did your grandmother had?
It was dementia, and I'm not the expert on this, but I believe it's dementia and then it becomes amnesia. Is that where, what's that? I'm honestly asking.
Okay. Well, just for the benefit of our listeners too, the dementia is basically an umbrella term for a disease. And then under that umbrella, you've got different diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's dementia, you got the Lewy body dementia, and there are a lot of types of dementia. And that was actually I was asking, but
So it was more in the direction of Alzheimer's. It didn't go full force because she still always remembered who my mom was, who we were. But it was interesting. I'm just going to go off on a tangent here a little bit, though you didn't ask. It was very interesting to see how it progressed because she actually, so I'm Jewish. I'm like a family of 100% Jewish. My mom's 100%, my dad's 100%. So we have descendants who survived the Holocaust, especially my grandma, who we called Nanny. So I'm going to start calling her Nanny now because that's how I know her. So Nanny, she was alive during that time. And so what's crazy to me is she's racist. She did not like black people. She was very racist, and it was something I wasn't happy about with her. But I mean, what can I do? And I remember being resentful about that because I thought, we've already been through crap as Jews. Why would you hate somebody? Just why? Why? And my parent, I learned from others, in the family saying, it's because it was just the time period that they grew up in and just kind of shrugged it off because there's nothing you can do. But her dementia actually evolved where she forgot that she didn't like black people, which was good because when she was in a home, a senior living facility, that's who took care of her. But she forgot that, but it switched to where she would only eat white food.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Well, speaking of that, you mentioned about, they normally retain their long-term memory and their filtering mechanism is normally gone. And just imagine for the benefits of our listeners too, just imagine you've got a full filing cabinet. And then on that filing cabinet, you've got different years there. And what normally happens is that when you take off that filing cabinet, you take off that year of 2015, 2013, 2010, and what's remaining is the long-term memory, and that's what's happening there. So on Jenna's grandmother, I think it was partly it was good because she has forgotten that time about that, that specific race. So I think that was good at the same time.
I think it was a very good thing. I think there was a moment where I remember I was at this family gathering and, all this, the typical bagel lox and cream cheese and lacha was all on the table. And there was some I forget what it was on the table. It was either sour cream or something white, maybe yogurt for all I know. Who knows? It was kosher, so it was something white and kosher, but it was more of a topping. Let's say mayonnaise for now, because I just want to give you an idea of something that will make you gag. So I love mayonnaise on things, don't get me wrong, but in this context, you'll get it. So she's at the table looking for something to eat, and of course she sees this bowl of white food, which is mayonnaise. And I see her grab one of the spoons, and I see her dip the spoon, into the mayonnaise. And she's slowly bringing it to her mouth. Mm-hmm. And both myself and my cousin Justin leapt in, no, Nanny! And like prevented her from doing it. I just remember it just being such a realization of like how, far gone she had become with her choices. To her, that was just, food, she's not realizing why she's choosing the white food. She's not thinking about the fact that she's dipping into that and taking it directly to her mouth rather than putting it on the plate. Like a lot of things, like just basic human manners, and how you would just be amongst other people. It was gone. It was very eye-opening. It was funny, something we laugh about in our family, but it was also a very eye-opening moment on what it was going on in her head, or not.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Wow. Well, how did you realize? How was she diagnosed?
Doctors for her was her diagnosis, and I remember, that point. There was a period of time that was very hard for my mom and her sisters because she didn't have a plan of care for herself. So getting her into the home, assisted living was a very, very difficult time because also just finances weren't in order. It was actually a very, very stressful time for my mother and my aunts because nothing was set into play. They had to sell the house. They had to take care of everything. But it needed to be done. It needed to be done. We also had because my mom is one of three sisters, one of the sisters actually still lived in that house. So there was also that difficulty of saying, all right, you got to move out of the house now and go elsewhere too, because you can't afford this whole house on your own. And so it was dementia. It really, as much as she was being affected, and it was horrible to see. It sucks to see somebody go on a decline. It was also, it affects a bigger picture too, of people don't have their health care and their finances and everything in order. And my mother definitely experienced that. And since then, she has told me that my mom and dad have things just set and ready to go. I will never have to deal with whatever she dealt with. And I want to pay it forward as well. Yeah.
That's good. Well, you mentioned about everything needs to be done, some sort of a living will. So for the benefits of our listener, a living will or any kind of, plan is very crucial. Estate planning, financial planning, medical stuff. You need to really, really have this on, done it as early as possible. So a perfect example is when my father passed away, and he never had, we never realized that he was going to pass away that quick. So right now we're having a hard time, deciding what to do with all his, his properties and all his other stuff. I'm just blessed that my what do you call that? My mother, that's our phone. Our mother is good. Or the other kids are good. The estate planning is very important because, it's just hard for the family to identify and who to delegate it. It's good that my family are really good and nice, and, we don't have any quandars or any issues. So that's very important. So, all right. Okay. I got tired just going and turning off that telephone there. So, all right. I need my own exercise. All right. So, what do you think helped you in this journey in coping up with your grandmother?
For me, it's unfortunate. I love my nanny very much, but I didn't see her all the time. And I definitely love her, and I loved her, the past and present. But for me, I didn't have that like extra bond where it was, and where it hurt. I was extremely sad. I'm sad, but not where I was like bawling, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in California. She was in New York, and she wasn't a regular part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I didn't have, like my cousins who saw her regularly, I didn't have that like extreme feeling of loss as this went on. I feel she also wasn't the most intelligent person her whole life, even before dementia. So there wasn't, though I'm talking about differences, there wasn't a big difference though too because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm literally forgetting about what the question is. So would you mind asking the question again?
Well, how did you what helped you in this journey, and how are you coping? How did you guys cope up with it? So.
Okay, so what helped me with the journey was the fact that I wasn't that close with her.
Mm-hmm.
So that is unfortunate, of course, but I wasn't upset with it. And then with coping with it, I still say I'm still coping with it, but it's more from an unfortunately selfish perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I say unfortunate because I think it's nicer to reach outside of myself rather than just within. But knowing that that's going to happen to me, that sucks. There's nothing I can do about it. I can keep working my brain and doing things for the brain, as far as I know, if you got tips, or some magic pill, but it's what it is at this
Mm-hmm.
point. We don't have a cure for it.
Yeah, that's very true. Right now we don't have any cure, but we do have, what you call, internal and external factors that we can modify. Obviously, for our listeners again, we have what you call the internal factors and the external factors. The internal factors, we cannot help that, especially with genes, the apolipoprotein gene, that those genes that are, they're having some stuff now that they can detect if you got the risk for Alzheimer's or dementia. But with regards to the external factors, obviously we can help that, and, proper diet, exercise, our brain is also a muscle, you have to also exercise it. So you touched earlier about the cognition level. There is what you call in the physical body, you have what you call the strength reserve. When we get sick, if you're strong, before you got sick, if you're strong, you get a good strength reserve. So, you can recover faster.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with dementia. If you got a good cognitive reserve, you can actually mask it. So, evidence-based show you get higher chances of dementia or Alzheimer's when your education is a little bit low. But if you are, you've got a good cognitive reserve, those patients can actually compensate and try to mask it a little bit, and they don't get diagnosed with Alzheimer's early. So that's you're on the right track. You're a doctor and everything like that. So that's a good cognitive reserve there. So that
is very promising. I'll just keep reading things that make my mind go.
That's good. So next question, Jenna, would be what is the one thing that you wish you knew before all of this happened? I mean, what is the one thing that you wish you knew?
I wish I knew to respect it more, because I was young and I didn't understand the seriousness of it from my mother's perspective. And for me, I was coming from this very naive, I don't know her that well, but this is what's happening. Okay, that's what's happening. I wish I could have been there for my mother more and was there for my mother. I remember seeing my mom like a year later and just kind of, she was on the steps in front of the house. She was just kind of silently crying, not like, but just she had tears in her eyes. And she said, I just miss my mom. And I never checked up. I was never there for her during that. And I wish if I could go back, it would be that, is to be outside of myself.
Oh, wow. That is just such a very powerful testimony, Jenna. And that's the thing that we're talking about with the rest of our audience in the Misunderstanding Dementia group and the other Alzheimer's group that I talked to. And it's that, cherishing the moment that you're with your family. I know it's hard right now if you're listening right now, and if you're taking care of your loved ones, your mother, your grandmother, your spouse, I know it's hard, cleaning them, wiping them, cleaning up after them, feeding them and everything. But when it's all is said and done, you're just going to cherish this, and you're just going to tell yourself, oh, I remember the time that I was feeding him. I remember the time that I was cleaning her up. And those tests that you're going through actually will be a testimony for other people. Those techniques that you're learning while you're taking care of your loved ones right now will be a technique that you can share for other people. So if you're listening right now, just hang in there. And I know, this will be a good thing for you in the future. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Jenna. So
thank you for your share on that. That was very powerful.
Well, thank you. Of course, your title of your group is Powerful Performer.
Yes.
Well, let's go ahead and plug that in. What do you do again with that Powerful Performer, Jenna? I mean, maybe some other dementia client or people who are listening right now can learn about that Powerful Performer. I mean, what is it about?
Oh, that's Powerful Performer is for performing artists. So it's basically to empower performing artists, singers, actors, dancers. Right now I'm really focusing on musical theater artists. And it's to empower them to become their own health superheroes. And what I mean by that, if I was going to go into more detail, is that specifically for people who are not covered by a union, they don't have the best access to health care. So they may be in the middle of nowhere a lot of the time performing shows at these regional theaters or even on tour, and they don't have access to the appropriate health people when something arises. And there's a good chance something has arisen for most performers, and they've just been able to mask and, shake it off and keep pushing through, because a lot of the people doing the traveling are going to be in their 20s and 30s. And then if you get into the later age, they're usually in the union. So with that, they are at risk of going to doctors who don't know what about their profession. They will not understand. They're in the middle of nowhere, like I said, and that makes a big, big difference on the health care that they can provide and how they can get better. And my goal is for not only to create a community where they can speak openly and in a safe zone, where it's like whatever happens in here stays in here, where they can have a safe zone to speak about any concerns about their voice or their body or whatever. But I also want it to be a place where they can just become so knowledgeable about their body, how to judge if they're at the wrong practitioner, to know what their insurance does or does not cover, to know what certain terminologies mean. So that way they can just really up the ante on their overall health for their performance career.
Oh, wow. I think you're doing a good job there, and a good niche there too. So
important. It doesn't exist. I wish it did. But yeah, so there's a big need for that, big need. And I mean, but also there's similar to yours with where you're focusing on dementia and you're bringing more awareness on it. It's similar with performers. They don't value it. They don't think about it. If you're healthy, you don't think about it. It's only when you're not doing well that you think about it. So I want it to be more progressive and thinking in advance and preemptive.
Oh, wow. Speaking of that, I saw a video that a patient, it was a video of a person who was dancing, and she was kind of really old, probably 80 or 90 year old, and still dancing.
Love that.
She was just the sharpest person that they were interviewing it. They interviewed her, and she was like 80 and 90 years old because she was dancing and everything, and her memory is just so sharp because she still danced in her movement and the increase in blood flow in her body, increasing blood flow to her brain. And that actually minimizes the risk for her from getting dementia. So that's really good.
That's so true. I love that. I love how you're bringing that up, because a lot of times right now, because in society, when we talk about exercise, we're thinking about weight loss and how we look. That's how I still think it, but not as much, because as you get older, the motivation changes. You're actually working out to function, to walk, or to think, for your brain to work appropriately. So I like that you bring that up, because it's when you embrace the simpler things, you are able to not have to worry about looking at the past and, I remember when. You can actually still currently live it.
That's right. I love that you mentioned that too, because a lot of our patients, when it comes to older patients and dementia patients, a lot of the therapists will try to do this kind of exercise. For example, okay, you've got dementia, we'll put you in the bicycle. Okay, you've got dementia, we'll put you in that upper body ergo, whatever. You can't do that to your dementia patients. If you've got a dementia patient and then you want them to get better and stronger, and then they're just wandering and they want to wander, let them walk all the time, and that way you're improving their gait abilities. If a patient just wants to do gardening, just let them do gardening. If a patient wants to do carpentry, let them do some carpentry stuff. Of course, you do it safely. So I think that's really good. That's really good.
Yeah, my nanny, she walked all the time. She was a big walker. She walked all the time. I remember my aunt talking about that.
That's good.
It's good for you. Good to hear that. And she was walking on her own all the way up to when she passed. So that's a big deal. I never even thought about that until you just said that.
Yeah. A lot of therapists, they will say, oh, that patient is a wanderer, let's just put him in a wheelchair so they don't fall. No, let them walk around, follow them, walk them around, let them use up all that energy, and then have them rest after that. Let them use up all this energy. So last question here, what advice you can give to other caregivers?
To other caregivers, I would say, reach out to people as you're going through it. You do not want to be alone. My mother had her sisters. I can't imagine how it would have been if my mom was alone dealing with some of the stuff, healthcare wise. I have friends who, and I've worked with patients who have been, dependent on caregivers, and I've spoken to those caregivers, and it's not easy. It's not easy. And do not get mad at yourself if you start disliking the person you're caring for. You need to take care of you. As much as that's hard to do, find ways to take care of yourself. It's okay, the feelings that you're feeling as you're going through it, to feel resentment, that's fine. That doesn't mean you're an evil person. You're an amazing human being for extending beyond yourself every single day, every moment of the day. So just know you're not alone, and and love on yourself too. And I know that's very, very hard to do. And if anything, if I was going to say one piece of advice, try to find that moment when you are taking time for yourself, even if it's just you sitting and eating quietly, and acknowledge that this is my me time right now. And that will help you appreciate those moments when you have that alone time so much more. You're not extending beyond because you're already likely exhausted, both physically and mentally. And you'll start seeing more how those little things do exist, and you can enjoy those moments more.
Oh, wow. Such a very powerful advice there, Jenna. I just would like to reiterate what Jenna said, the power of reaching out and taking care of you. If you're listening right now, you're doing a good job by listening to this podcast, first of all. The second thing you need to do, what Jenna said, you got to learn how to reach out. Reach out not only from your family, reach out within your community. What other Alzheimer's group you have there, or what support you can get, from home health companies, nursing support, social service support. You have to learn how to reach out and learn how to delegate the help that you need, because if you cannot do everything. And second thing that I really like what Jenna said is about taking care of yourself. Self-care is very important. If you're a caregiver right now, you're giving care. Now, here's the thing. You cannot give what you do not have. Just like money. You cannot give somebody if you don't have enough money yourself. You cannot give, love if you don't love yourself. And you cannot care for somebody if you don't take care of yourself. So that's probably our biggest takeaway right now. Reach out and learn to take care of yourself. Again, any last parting wisdom words, Miss Jenna?
No, not at all. Thank you so much for having me on here and just getting me to appreciate the effects of dementia for both the caregiver and the patient, even more so.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much for listening to our show. We appreciate you. We love you, and God bless you. Bye-bye. You're listening to Misunderstanding Dementia Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Misunderstanding Dementia Course, and you can put in 50 to get a 50% discount on the course. Thank you.